I've never experienced anything like that in my life.
That the press intervened so drastically when things got extremely explosive, when we were finally supposed to learn the truth. But before we get started, listen to how Welt reacted to it. And if you want to support this channel, I would really appreciate a like and a subscription, and don't forget to hype it up.
Thank you so far for Meinung am Morgen. Unfortunately, we have to stop now as we've received the stop signal from the control room. Sorry, we must end here.
And the stop was really so strict that we can't make any exceptions.
This interview ended in a complete disaster. Ulrich Jörges has worked through all the topics and explained to us how things really are in Germany. And that we really need to be seriously worried that construction projects are now simply being cancelled. Not because we can't finance them, but because Germany simply can't build anymore. And we are completely at the end, both socially and when it comes to skilled trades, and he's about to drop the bombshell.
He was great. He re-established the relationships with Paris and Washington, and everything was perfect. Over.
By the way, Germany has definitely taken the wrong turn at the crossroads by now. By the way, a small clarification from my old videos. I know I used to say Weidel Alice and also Ulrich Siegmund Ulrich. So, and where I come from, there's a saying, if you have a lot of respect for someone because of their life's work or what they've accomplished or what they do every day, then you always say the first name first and then the last name. Back then, there was already so much criticism about Miss Weidel, and at first I also always said the last name first and then the first name. That was a sign of respect. I think that's unique to my small village where I grew up. People did things that way there. Now, let's take a closer look. What does this have to do with this chancellor? And why is Welt now saying that this man has to go and then suddenly it's interrupted like that?
Last point, he didn't even make an attempt to establish a relationship with Moscow. There's no other way. Even if Putin is a dictator and is waging war in Europe, you have to have relations with him as the German chancellor. He should have flown there a long time ago.
He just did a 180-degree turn on his opinion. I thought it was extremely bad to go to Putin. I thought it was extremely bad to talk to him. And anyone who even remotely mentions the name Putin is a criminal. So here in Germany, how can Ulrich Jörges suddenly stand there and say, why? He should have talked to Putin earlier, and now take a close look at his face. I'll let this play for a bit.
To establish a connection. And if you haven't been to Moscow, you can't develop a peace plan for Ukraine. He lost everything he once had in foreign policy.
And now let's look at the news of the day.
When it came to talking to Putin, he paused, looked down, said yes, but you just saw it yourselves, right? And then he tried to talk his way out of it somehow, saying, well, you also have to talk to Ukraine and peace negotiations and Poland and blah, blah. And then at the end, he nodded briefly as if to say, I understand. Of course, it's possible that I'm reading way too much into this, but it goes even further. Because here too by now the Poles are extremely angry with us because they say very clearly there can only be negotiations on Ukraine with us. Because we are right on the border. So NATO and the Poles want to be included, just like the Italians. It's also very important to them to be part of the peace negotiations, but nobody here in Europe cares about making peace. And I'm currently working on a video about that. It's another very, very long video. That's what it's about. It'll probably be out tonight or tomorrow. And hold on, it's about Stuttgart 21. And then we'll get right to the director's instructions. Now it's quitting time. We don't want to hear any more about it. But like I said, just listen for a moment to the deso or the desolate state here in Germany.
There are still 5 years left until 2031 because they installed 1,000 kilometers of cable incorrectly. 1,000 kilometers, I can hardly imagine where all of that is supposed to be. But such a huge thing has electricity running through it everywhere, yeah. The Fehmarnbelt crossing from Germany to Denmark through 2 large tubes, one for cars and one for trains, is uncomplicated on the Danish side, but a huge problem on the German side. Alper is simple, but it's a big issue on the German side. The city of Düsseldorf has now decided to cancel the construction of a new opera house, a modern opera house. Good decision.
but not because the coffers are empty or because they can't raise the money. Hold on, because the construction could end up costing many times more than what was originally put out to tender. And at the same time, you have to assume that there are so many technical deficiencies in the construction that it would basically be impossible to complete it properly. And that these costs could then exceed anything that has ever been calculated anywhere. That's why there's no new opera house for Düsseldorf. I mean, I actually think it's pretty good, at least at the moment, that there's no new opera house for Düsseldorf. I mean, I actually think it's pretty good. At the moment, maybe it's better to make more use of what we already have, especially when it comes to opera and similar things. And maybe it's better to spend the money on schools instead, or on theaters, or rather on those things. Swimming pools, invest in swimming pools. Here in Germany, they're just falling apart, so definitely do a bit more for our children here. And not just focus on the cash registers. Things are getting worse and the world can't tolerate it anymore. And really how things actually look in Germany and how the Americans have once again punished us with the maximum penalty.
Watching what's happening with Elon Musk and what he's planning, he's talking about flying to Mars. And honestly, 5 years ago, we would have said he's a bit crazy, right? Flying to Mars, that's not something we'll be doing anytime soon. So the German economy is really old. It has no drive anymore, no inventions, nothing new. Nothing is happening. Personally, I don't own a single German stock anymore, and I have no intention of buying one again. It's all just too boring for me.
Well, come on, Welt. Who was afraid of the left-wing terrorists here on the street? Who was afraid that you'd be caught in the crossfire tomorrow? Because when he said that, well, that's when the producers stepped in. That person wasn't allowed to keep talking. Supposedly, of course, it was just because of the World Cup and they still had so much coverage to do. Although I watched it this morning, well, definitely just played old clips right after that. So Ulrich Jürges wasn't allowed to keep talking because he made statements like that. And here, I'll play it for you again real quick and also what comes up at the end.
She says, no, we have to stop this morning. The control room has already given us the stop signal. Sorry.
We have to stop at this point, and that stop was really intense.
Now just imagine 2 or 3 days ago you heard that Elon Musk was starting a riot in Belfast. He would be in England, in Northern Ireland, which belongs to England for those who are going to write that in the comments again. He would have just triggered massive protests. Many people have died there now. There have been attacks on shelters for asylum seekers and so on. And now you stand there and you say, the greatest entrepreneur in the world who wants to fly to Mars, Elon Musk, he still knows how to do things right. Yes, that you have to shut him down quickly, let's say. We realize that pretty fast. And I always watch Ulrich Jürges videos every Monday. And that he often first looked like this and then like that. And every time he thought again about what he was going to say next. That's not how I actually know him. Because actually, Sin is usually very confident. He just delivers his text, presents his research. And this time, it was different. And then comes the ultimate disaster trigger. Take a look at it.
Thank you, Uli. I'm still going to say 3 more sentences despite your prohibition. The Turkish Prime Minister Vogt had a speech about the liberation of the Buchenwald concentration camp written by AI speechwriters.
So, and now hold on tight. Actually, I didn't want to bring up this topic because I'm basically destroying my own business with it. That's why at first I just let Plagiate Mario go and dropped it for now. But here at my desk, right in front of me, I also write applications, and I use AI for that too. But I don't know, for example, the eulogy for my grandma, I would never write that with AI because even there, and I really have to say, when you have such emotional speeches, you should always write them yourself and actually by hand. Why? I'll be completely honest with you. I have a clipboard up here, yeah, right on top. And whenever it has to be personal, whenever people, for example, might feel hurt or something like that, then I always do something like that by hand because it has a certain value. But Plagiate Mario has absolutely no problem with being unscrupulous. We've known that since his doctoral thesis, but that's just not what the world wanted. That she would probably include that as well. And of course, Ulrich Jürges didn't let anyone silence him.
That's completely out of line. It's so disrespectful to the victims. That must never happen again. What am I trying to say with this? My hope is that we need to define AI-free zones that are also respected.
And at this point, I think to myself again, the man is not all there, he's lost it. Let's leave it at that. I really have to be careful about what I say here. No. We don't need AI-free zones. We need to teach people what's happening there. We need to teach people to recognize what AI does and what isn't done by AI. And thirdly, what do you think? Why can Elon Musk explain to people that we'll soon be flying to Mars or building a moon colony? And this, yes, this one share of SpaceX, hold on tight, the company is worth more than the entire DAX combined, meaning all German stocks. And here's the crucial point. They use AI without any rules. They use AI to move forward as quickly as possible. However, ethics, which should actually be at the forefront, is secondary. And as long as they don't change that, as long as the Chinese don't change that, we'll just keep falling behind. Either we fight hard or we're heading for downfall, one of the two. But I think I've supported AI from the very beginning. Why? Because we can't afford to fall behind. And of course, we can all say AI is way too dangerous for me. And unfortunately, I have to tell you this, and it's much, much worse. If we don't go down this path, if we're not willing to fight hard, then we won't be a prosperous country anymore. They will leave us behind and later bring in some robots to do the work. And Germany will become a poor country, maybe like Syria. And I don't think anyone here wants that. Because now at some point we want to have economic growth again, or am I wrong about that? The Americans will soon be flying to Mars and we're crashing hard to the ground.